Andrew Hoke here on Triple J's Full Metal Racket, and I guess we can even call this lad a little bit of a semi-co-host. He's been on the show this much here on Full Metal Racket, so let's welcome him back to the airwaves of Triple J. Of course, Gigantour is heading to Oz later, around November, and we're going to now have a chat with Mr. Dave Mustaine from Megadeth. Welcome back to Triple J, Dave.
Thanks, buddy.
How you doing?
I'm excited to talk with you and talk to all of our friends down in Australia.
Now, you're obviously, in over your head with the tour so far for the recent album, United Abominations. How's things been going on the live front with the new tracks?
The new record's doing really well. It charted down in Australia, which is one of our firsts, and it came in the top 10 in America again. It had a good debut, and we took 2 months off during the beginning of the career, the campaign for this record. Unfortunately, because I had promised my family that we would take the summer off, and that was because the record was supposed to come out considerably earlier. But as it continued to get pushed back, that window of touring up until that time I'd promised being off got smaller and smaller. But however, that time's over now, and we're ready to rock and tour and support this record.
Now, listening to the album, it certainly is, to me, a band situation, especially with the lineup that you've had for the last few years on the System Has Failed tour, which, as we know, that album was sort of, put together by a bunch of other sort of assisted musicians, whereas, like I said, this album is certainly a band effort and more cohesive. Are you feeling the same, feeling when you listen back to the album United Abominations?
Yeah, I certainly feel that there's a kind of a band vibe with everybody. It makes us all feel good because we know what we can expect from one another. But there's been times before where we had that band vibe, and we were really all just living a lie because we didn't like each other. I mean, the good thing about this is that there's a friendship amongst everybody. They like playing the music that we're playing. They're fans of the music. We all understand that we've got, as entertainers, we've got a really, really great life in order to be able to come and visit you guys and be able to play music for you. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that? So to get up on stage and act like, you owe me something, I'm sorry, fuck you. The band owes the audience something. It's the other way around.
And how did you find with the recording sessions of the record? Because it really has, like I said, a real band feel to it, and I really feel like I guess that was evident in the studio at the time of the making of the record.
Well, we had a couple of moments in the beginning of making the record where we kind of had some changes. We were going through some stuff, and we changed our producer, the guy that was co-producing with me in the middle, because I had told him, I said, we've really got to make a metal record. We've got to go back to my roots and do the stuff that I'm famous for. And partway through the record was coming along nicely, but it just still wasn't. It hadn't started to take on that metal. Just that that whole metal personification on a record that you're listening to a metal disc. It would have been something that was equally as well produced with the songs that are as good as Risk or Cryptic Writings or anything like that. But unfortunately, when you have a record like that and fans want something that's heavy and thrashy, they just don't want to hear something like that.
Now, lyrically on the album, I mean, you've always been a very outspoken person and generally wear your heart on your sleeve and just say exactly what you're feeling, be it in interviews or even in your lyrics. Now, with the album, do you see this as a political record for Megadeth?
This one, I think this one's it's semi-political, but I think that all the records, every song that I've ever written has had a political tinge to it. I mean, even the Politics of Love have their own kind of expressionism to it. If you're talking about relationships, there's all kinds of ways to look at that too. Whether it's a failed relationship with somebody you love, or it's a parental or a sibling relationship, or a friend or somebody that you love or hate, or stuff like that. There's politics involved in all that crap. Do
you put these out on paper just because they're coming from from what's inside, or you're really trying to put sort of a message across? I mean, have any fans sort of, I guess, asked you a bit more about what you write?
I've never really sat out when I wrote lyrics to try and impress anybody with my vocabulary or to write something where I would make people go, gosh, he's so clever. Usually what I do is I watch stuff on the news, and it's stuff that makes me angry.
Yep.
When I was watching the news recently, just for example, there was a mine here in America that had some miners that had been trapped inside.
Yeah,
The guy that owned the mine was just being a total jerk on the press, and I knew that the guys were dead already, and I think he knew that the guys were dead already, but he didn't want to take responsibility for it because they were doing a particular way of mining that's very dangerous. And you just look at somebody and you just know that they're lying. One thing you can tell with me, you'll know when I'm lying because I'm a very transparent person. If somebody asks me if I don't like them, I'll tell you. What the hell do I got to lose?
Yep.
Myself, my band, we've always been really what you see, what you get. You yell loud enough on stage when I'm joking around with you, and it's a song that, we can actually do that we don't have on the set list, and we're feeling good enough. Shoot, we might put an extra song in there. And when I'm talking to the audience, a lot of times, I really enjoy making eye contact with people and doing stuff like that. But I don't usually talk very much because I'm more concerned about playing when I'm on stage.
Well, speaking of, as you mentioned, throwing in different songs, now you're putting out the Megadeth War Chest at the end of this month, which is basically a 4 CD and DVD box set, which just features a monstrosity of just Megadeth rarities. Now, I guess putting this whole thing together, looking back on the career, I mean, were there certain things that you, I guess, dug out of the archives that you'd forgotten about, or just thought, wow, just was a bit of a sort of a, what's the word, a whirlwind throughout the career you've had with Megadeth dating back from 83?
It has been a whirlwind, but then there's also been, that was something that I live off of, that energy. I'm addicted to it. To getting up in the middle of the night and catching a train, catching a plane, packing your stuff, running to catch a bus, up the stairs, onto the stage, sing your heart out, down the stairs, dry off, get into a bus, race to the airport, catch a plane, get to the next city. I live for that.
Yeah. Are there days where you think, like what you would be doing if you weren't doing this? Do you, what would you be doing if you weren't playing in Megadeth?
I really enjoy having one-on-one relationships with people. For me, I probably would be a teacher or something like that, because when I used to teach kids something a long time ago, and I wasn't a certified teacher. It's just I was an assistant teacher at a place, and it was just so much fun to be able to be with little kids and to just be friends with them. I mean, I'm not Michael Jackson, for God's sakes. We were doing martial arts, so
yeah.
I was trying to help these kids learn how to defend themselves, but there's certain things you just love to do. I love to help people.
Yeah.